Discuss this a little bit more with Robert Kelly. He joins us from Busan and is a professor of political science and diplomacy at Pusan National University in South Korea. Thank you, Prof, so much for your time. Now, if North Korea has actually restarted its nuclear program and has restarted this particular nuclear reactor, what would their reasons be for doing this, and why would they be doing it now?
Well, I think now that Donald Trump is out of office and the negotiations, the personal level negotiations between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un have ended, I think the North Koreans don't really see a lot forthcoming from the Americans, and there's really no reason not to keep on running the program. It's the program, of course, that gives them leverage, right? It's the missiles and the warheads that actually get the world to pay attention to them. You know, without them, North Korea is basically just sort of a dictatorship lost in time. And so as long as the North Koreans have these things, people pay attention, people make offers and so on. And if the Americans are not going to make an offer, they might as well just build up the stockpile so they can eventually, trade more of it away later or something like that, right? The more of it they have, the better deal they'll get in the future.
And Prof, the Biden administration has said it is willing to hold talks with Pyongyang. We, of course, see a very different relationship from this U.S. administration compared to the one that Donald Trump had not that long ago with Kim Jong-un. Do you think the news of the restarting of this nuclear reactor could now actually push Washington to reach out, or is it a situation where Biden is dealing with so many issues at the moment, Afghanistan with regards to foreign policy topping that list, the COVID-19 pandemic and crisis in the U.S. How much of a priority is Pyongyang and its actions for the U.S. right now?
Not a big one, right? You're basically correct with your second sort of list of issues there, right? COVID and restarting the economy, and now, the numbers of COVID are going back up in the U.S. because of vaccine hesitancy. And now, of course, we have Afghanistan, which has sort of exploded in the U.S. media into this great big thing. And so, North Korea is just part on the list. I would also sort of note that trying to sort of resolve the North Korean issues for an American president is like trying to resolve that Israeli-Palestinian issue, right? It's just this vortex, and you get sort of sucked in, and it's really, really hard to fix. And I think a lot of American presidents just don't want to wade in there unless there's some really clear, obvious sort of answer to the problem, right? That's been worked up by officials and in negotiations and everything else. Trump didn't do that, right? Trump just sort of flew out and met Kim Jong-un and was like, hey, let's just strike a deal. And that's pretty hard to do given how far apart the U.S. and North Korea are. There's very little strategic trust. So if Biden's ever actually going to meet Kim and sort of ink some kind of major deal, there's going to have to be a lot of negotiation and a lot of back and forth done first. I think the Americans would be willing to do that, but I don't really think that the North Koreans seem particularly interested. The Americans don't seem particularly interested either, right? So it's not clear to me that we're like heading towards some big new phase of hostility. We're just kind of drifting along in the status quo.
And how do you expect South Korea and other countries in the region to react to what's happening?
Well, the Japanese will be pretty upset, and that's the most obvious one, because Japan is always felt very threatened by the expansion of North Korean missiles, because Japan is sort of more or less insured against North Korean conventional force. It's really missiles and nukes that worry the Japanese. For South Korea, it's kind of par for the course, right? I mean, South Korea has been under threat from North Korea for a long time. The current government in South Korea is lame duck. The current president's out in about 6 or 7 months. So I'm not really sure there's a whole lot the current South Korean government can do. This isn't really something that, for example, is getting much play in the South Korean media, right? I mean, the North Koreans have been back and forth on nukes with the South Koreans for decades. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, everybody's upset, right? I mean, because we just don't really have eyes on the ground. We don't really know what they're making.
Yes, still so many questions and uncertainty around that. Professor Robert Kelly, really appreciate your insight on this situation. Thank you so much.